Okay, so we are actually waiting for one of our speakers. She's having internet issues, so we just give her a few minutes to see if she joins. But we can already begin with the webinar. Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here today for yet another Njunkim Legal webinar. This one is titled Mastering Corporate Compliance, a Guide for Lawyers. My name is God Grace, and I am the moderator for today's session. I'm a legal professional, and I'm the founder of Njunkim Legal, a growing firm dedicated to helping individuals and businesses navigate legal and compliance matters with clarity and excellence. And here at Njunkim Legal, we're very passionate about empowering the next generation of lawyers to build meaningful and specialized careers. This webinar series is one of our ways of ensuring that knowledge sharing, mentorship, and community impact actually happens. Today on the webinar, we are joined here with two speakers, Mpoikana Abasi Joseph and Adelayo Banjo. Those are the two speakers that we are having today for our webinar series. First off, I will introduce Banjo Adelayo. She is a compliance professional known for making regulations practical and approachable. She has expertise in implementing technical regulations and supporting product development. She also helps organizations to stay compliant while fostering integrity. She brings fresh hands-on perspective from the gaming and tech space. You're welcome to the webinar, Adelayo. Yeah, you're welcome to the webinar.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is NK Mpoekana Joseph. She is a senior associate, legal and compliance at her corporation. She brings extensive experience from fintech and banking. She has led data protection programs, she's managed regulatory audits, and she's advised across multiple African markets. MK is very passionate about building strong compliance cultures that drive business growth and operational excellence. She's presently having internet issues, so I hope she can join us soon, but we will just have to proceed while we wait for her. Okay, so Adelayo, just let's assume that the people we have on the webinar do not really know much about what compliance is about. So my first question would be, what does corporate compliance mean in gaming and tech, and why should students and young lawyers care about this?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we lost you. We lost you for a bit, so if you can take that again.
Okay, I was saying that corporate compliance in iGaming is basically ensuring that the products and the services, the products, when we say the products, this include casino games and sportsbook games, and the platforms on which the games will be hosted, the systems on which the game history or the player data will be stored. It basically means that all of these products, the games and the platforms, are developed and delivered in accordance with the laws and also the regulations of whichever country the operator is taking all of those games or the products to. So different countries have different jurisdiction, different regulations, and you need to make sure that you go through those regulations and you develop the games, and you also offer the games to the customers in line with what those regulations have provided. And so you need to make sure that you adhere to the technical standards, responsible gambling practices. There's also data protection laws, anti-money laundering requirements, just like other requirements. You need to make sure that you adhere to all of those requirements. You might think that some requirements are just like minor, or they are inconsequential, but they are very important, because all of those requirements have been put in place to make sure that the player is protected, because iGaming can can be it can become a problem for some people. That's people that battle addiction. So you need to make, and the regulators have put in place like standards to make sure that players are protected. So you need to make sure that okay, you develop your products in line with these standards. And you also need to just do that because the regulators are also active, and they are willing to exercise their enforcement powers. So they could either issue a fine or suspend the license of the operator, or it can also like cause reputational damage, financial loss for the operator. So you are protecting the player and also protecting your own yourself.
Mhm. Wow. Sounds like you need it covers like a whole lot of segments. You're looking at the company, you're looking at the regulations, you're also looking at the customers. So it's like a lot of different parts that need to work together in that sense. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have more questions relating to this, how a day-to-day would sort of, look like, but I think I'll hold on for now and just sort of welcome MK to the webinar because I think she's here. Hello, MK. Are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much for
Great.
joining us. Can
Thank
you hear me?
Great. Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. We already did your introduction while you were not here, but maybe I'll just go through it again. So first off, I said like you are a senior associate and a legal compliance specialist, and you bring extensive experience from fintech and banking. Our other speaker on the webinar, she's from the gaming sector, and you are from the fintech sector. The first question I just asked her is, what compliance mean in her sector, which is, gaming and tech. And I would want to ask you the same question. What does compliance mean in fintech? How would you classify compliance in the fintech space?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're listening from. What does compliance mean in my industry, which is banking and finance, right? For us, it basically means building trust. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, go on.
Great.
We can hear you.
Okay. So it basically means building trust, and this is you building trust not with the regulators and your customers. So it's also like ensuring that your business practices aligns with regulations, such as like AML regulations, data protection laws, financial regulations in terms of your financial ratios meeting the regulatory standards. So, and this is because one, in my industry, we tend to deal with money. You're dealing with people's money, and also dealing with customers' data, like sensitive data, which is like their financial data.
Okay. All right. So, Bandro, so let me continue. Adelayo, let me continue with you. How did you find your way into compliance? Because this webinar is specially prepared for young graduates and students who are really looking into the compliance space. So this is like a personal sort of question for you. Like, how did you get into the compliance space?
I studied law and also practiced law for a bit in Nigeria. I was going to courts and just trying to, do what, like just gain some experience as a young lawyer. And then after some time, I practiced law for like 5 years, and then I wasn't in like a cycle for me because all you do is go to court and then you go and you prepare briefs. And obviously, with the way the legal system is in Nigeria, there's days you would go to court and then it's like the court is not sitting. So you basically wasted your morning and went to court. And then there's also days where cases that go on for like 10 years. So I kind of got tired of that, and I decided to just go for a master's degree. I came to Estonia for a master's degree in international law and human rights. And then after completing that, I saw a job for for like compliance officer, games compliance officer, and then I saw that the requirement was that you should have like a legal background, and you should just maybe have done like some audits and things like that. So I just applied, and I'd say that during the interview I really did not understand like what they meant by being like a games compliance officer, because fine, the interviewees described like what it involved, but then I just could not wrap my head around it, because that was like my first interaction with games and regulations and compliance and all of that stuff. But when I got into when I started doing the work, I realized, okay, I started to understand it. And also, it became quite interesting for me, because then you realize that for everything that we consume, there is a regulation involved in that. So that was quite interesting to me. And I also just want to say that maybe there's also people that do not have like legal backgrounds. They can also pivot into this career path, because in the team I am now, many of them do not have the legal background, and they are thriving very well in the roles that they in the technical compliance role. So I would also say that that shouldn't stop you. It basically shows how broad and how dynamic compliance in iGaming is, and being successful in iGaming compliance is all about being able to adapt, being able to think critically, and your attention to detail, and also just the normal skills that make you successful in any role that you might apply for. So that's how I got into compliance, and I've been doing that since 2021. And it's been quite challenging and also very interesting.
So a follow-up question to you would be, when you were speaking, you said like you don't necessarily have to be a lawyer to be in, be in the compliance sector. A follow-up question would be, don't the person who is working in this space a basic understanding of like the laws, is that not required? Is that not something that would give someone an edge, in a space like corporate compliance?
Yeah, definitely. Having knowledge and like knowing how to read and interpret regulations is like it will give you an edge. But like in this role, obviously, and also maybe like just having like for instance, because I am a technical compliance officer, having also technical knowledge, some technical knowledge could also just help, and just to give you an advantage too. So it doesn't hurt to have like different knowledge streams, basically.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying and just putting more light on that. I think MK is here with us, so I'll pass it on to you, MK. You were telling us about like what compliance is in the fintech space. So maybe you want to continue with that, because we sort of just lost you in the middle of that. And then when you're done with that, you probably want to continue and just let us know like how you found yourself in the compliance space.
Okay. So I'm not sure where you guys lost me, but anyways, I'm just going to gloss over the first question. Like I said, I mean, compliance is all about compliance in my industry, which is the finance industry, is basically about building trust, So you're building trust, with your customers because you're handling their money, and you're also building trust with your regulators because they are the ones who give you the license to operate your business in the first place. So it's also just avoiding penalties, but also you enabling like a safe space to innovate and just sustain your business in the long run. Because if you are not complying, you have your regulators enforcing. So enforcement could be fines, it could be revoking your license or even suspension of your license, depending on what you're doing. But yeah, it's mainly in my industry, it's mainly just aligning your business practices with regulations. So anti-money laundering and terrorism financing regulations, and you're ensuring that your practices are aligned with that. Financial regulations, your financial ratios are in line with what the regulators provide. Data protection, because you're handling customers' data on a day-to-day basis. So it's ensuring that your customers can trust you to keep their money, to handle their money, and that your regulators can also ensure that you are operating within the boundaries of the law. So that's basically compliance in my industry, which is the fintech industry. Now, to my personal journey into compliance and why people should consider this field. So for me, I started my career working in a law firm. To be honest, I started as a trainee associate in a law firm, and it was mainly corporate law, advisory, corporate advisory, company secretarial, those sort of things. That's how I started. But so after my 1 year training, when you're a training associate, after the 1 year, I was blessed enough to get a job in a fintech company. As at then, to be honest, I didn't even know much about fintech companies, and it was just booming at that time. So I was just so lucky to also have a job in that industry. So I transitioned in-house with this company, and I started as a legal counsel. I started as a legal counsel, and further down the line, the space was now open. So our head of compliance, as at the time, resigned. So I saw an opportunity, but I now started doing some of the regulatory compliance work. So that's how I found myself doing compliance. So I started taking on compliance task, also advising in terms of if there is a new regulation and we need to apply it to our business processes, our products. I would also, go through the regulations and also advise the business. I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah. So that was it for me, transitioning into when I transitioned and I did legal, and I also got to do compliance because an opportunity came up for me at that time. So also I should also point that I did just regulatory compliance for the first 2 years. I started doing compliance, but when I got my next role in another fintech company, I now got as a legal and compliance, a senior legal and compliance associate. So that's what my journey has been like. But for people who are considering the field, to be honest, it's an exciting field, especially if you're a lawyer, a law student. You have transferable skills that you can use to get a job in compliance, right? So it's just you blending your legal knowledge with business strategy. So you're not just in this regard, you're not just interpreting the law, you're not just reading the law and telling the company that, okay, this is what the law is providing. You're also responsible for ensuring that your organization, can work within the ambit of the law, so they can do what they want to do, but they can also do it legally. So you're just ensuring that they are compliant in terms of product rollouts and all that. So you're just shaping how the company operates responsibly in a regulated markets, because fintech, we're highly regulated markets because we're dealing with people's money again. So you're just reading the law, interpreting the law, and advising your company on how they can, operate responsibly. Yeah, that's it.
Saying that you and Adelayo have very similar backgrounds, in the sense that you're both lawyers and you have spent some time working in a law firm before you decided to go strictly into compliance. A follow-up question to you based on what you have shared so far would be would you say that your time that you spent in a law firm, is it useful to you right now in the compliance space? Would you say that for young lawyers, it's advisable for them to sort of go through the litigation process in the law firms before they proceed in-house to do corporate compliance? Or is it okay if they just decide to jump up at the opportunity if for corporate compliance? What would be your advice to young lawyers in that sense?
Okay. So for me, having worked in a law firm, to be honest, I only worked in a law firm for just 1 year, right? Having worked in a law firm, it helped me. Can you hear me?
Yes, carry on.
So it did help me in terms of how I interpret the laws, right? And also in terms of drafting, offering legal advisory. So that helped me when I also transitioned and when I started doing compliance. So I wasn't, and also it helped me think, it helped me to think like business wise. So I'm looking at how I can help the business, right? Because that business wants to do something and they want to make money. So I'm thinking of my experience in a law firm sort of also helped me on, or how can we help the business so that the business can move forward. So I'm not going to be a blocker. I'm going to, enable them to do what they want to do and do it within the law. So yes, that experience of being in a law firm, it's helped me a great deal. But I would also say you can, even if you don't have law firm experience, I'm sure that anybody um, get a compliance role and do excellently at it, so far as like you put your head down and you're ready to roll up your sleeves and do the work. You absolutely, because even people without legal background, they're able to get compliance roles and do excellently well. So yeah, it will help you a far great deal. Do you understand? If you're starting from a law firm, but it's also not so bad if you decide that you don't want to go through starting from the law firm routes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did ask that question so that our viewers, our listeners would not be deterred with with feeling like they need to have to go through, the litigation experience and all of that, because Adela already even mentioned that you don't necessarily even need the legal background. Once you're down to do the work, then you can. So thank you very much for sort of, putting in light into this and just letting our listeners know that they already have what it takes to sort of get into the field. There's nothing else that is lacking. Once they are ready and they seriously want to get into the space, then they can. So that's like a summary of what we've talked about so far. Let's go into a much more detailed aspect of this compliance sector. What would be, Adela, this question is for you. What would you classify as the top 2 compliance challenges in the gaming and tech industry right now?
So I'd say the first challenge is being able to keep regulations in in all of the markets that we operate in. So because there's constant updates to the regulations, or just trying to maybe protect the players more, the regulators might come up with various updates to the regulations. This might mean putting in bet limits. For instance, maybe the player should not be able to bet more than maybe 5 naira, above 5 naira for every bet that they make, or just like different updates to the regulations. So, and you, as compliance, you need to make sure that okay, you're up to date with the regulations, and also you advise the business on how to implement those standards or those updates. So just trying to keep up with all of those changing updates and evolving regulations is one of the challenges that we face in the iGaming sector. And well, some of the regulators, their websites are very up to date, and they also publish all of their updates on their websites. But then that's also like a manual process, because you need to make sure that you are checking those websites regularly, just so that you are abreast of whatever changes they might have made. And then there's also like platforms like Vixio, which kind of monitor the different markets and provide updates. If you some for if you want to get like regular updates, you would need to like subscribe to Vixio, and you still also need to just make sure that you're reading those updates. So that's kind of like kind of a challenge, because it's basically requires like a lot of effort to stay up to date and also to interpret the updates and make sure that the business is implementing them and implementing them correctly within like the stipulated time that the regulator gives. And then I'd say that another challenge is the fact that big technology is evolving faster than regulations. I'm sure like even in the fintech industry, you would see like how much technology grows really fast, but the regulations they can't keep up with how fast technology is growing. Like with the fact that we have AI now, but then there is no regulation for AI and the things that AI can do, like it makes you wonder, like it blows your mind basically. So we see when developers will come up with like different ideas or different features which are really great, and then but because there are no like clear legal provisions which cover those ideas, you need to like just as like an iGaming compliance officer, you need to just look at the regulations and try to find like some provisions that might be applicable to like those innovations that the developers or the ideas that the developers might have. And sometimes you might not even find anything, but you would just maybe look at like, okay, what kind of regulator as this is in this market? Is this a conservative regulator that does not accept anything that is not expressly stated in the regulations? Or is it like a liberal regulator that is like, okay, open to innovations, open to like changes and all of that? So it's just basically you need to try to like understand kind of like the spirit of the regulation and not just the letter of the regulation. But then there's also like the risk that you might have misinterpreted something, or you might just have given like the wrong advice. So it's very tricky in that sense.
I was saying that all of the things that you mentioned, they don't sound like things that would happen in a vacuum. They all sound like things that happen like, day to day in the life of, a compliance sort of specialist. So it sounds very, very rigorous in that sense, but also very exciting. Thank you for sharing. NK, is it any different in the fintech space? Did you say that these challenges also exist in the fintech space? Are there like any other sort of challenges that you would say are more evident in fintech space?
So to be very honest, not much difference because like she said, people are developing faster than the regulations are being rolled out. So that's one. And another thing is, so for my industry, I would say like there's this, I would say evolving regulatory frameworks. So for example, you have these different regulators. You have the CBN, you have the NDPC, you have NDIC, you have consumer protection. Like they are continually updating their regulations in terms of like payments, lending, data privacy, all that. So you have to, keep up. You have to keep up. You have to constantly adapt. You have to constantly make changes when these regulations come out. So like needs might, make a change maybe in payments system or something. And you also have to, your team, you have to change the processes to align, so that you're still able to carry out your business. You're still able to carry out your transactions. So another challenge we have, other than the regulations be evolving like from time to time, is AML. So in terms of like anti-money laundering, like fraud prevention, preventing terrorism financing and all that, right? So we have like because we are a financial institution, we deal with people's money. So there are like people are always targeting, fraud, money laundering. So there's always that we always need to implement like a robust KYC process and monitoring system, so that we're able to like monitor transactions, we're able to like flag transactions if they are not so in line with the customer's profile and all that. So these standards, there's sometimes a challenge, even though it does help the industry at the end of the day, right? So you could have already had your onboarding process, on how you onboard your customers, and then CBN can wake up tomorrow and say, okay, no, we're not doing this anymore, we're doing it this way. You don't have to change it all over again on how you onboard your customers, and you have to comply because they are your regulators and all those things. So yeah, so that's another challenge for us in the regulatory landscape. And then regulatory uncertainty, sometimes the regulations don't even favor you. So you might launch a service that would bring in income profits to the company, but tomorrow CBN will just wake up tomorrow and pass a regulation that doesn't really support that product. So those things do happen, and those are like some of the challenges that we find in space in the industry. Yeah.
From your experience, what happens when like when compliance is overlooked? Can you share like any specific or impactful situation where like compliance was overlooked, and what happened in that instance?
In our industry, there are actually a lot, I would say, right? There are actually a lot, because a lot of things happen. So I would say one example, like without disclosing like confidential information, I would always say one example which is sort of popular. It's when it's KYC processes, to be honest, KYC processes. So how you onboard your customers, for us fintech companies, we try to think like we're trying to be innovative in our thinking, way of doing things. We want to do things different from the way traditional banks are doing things, right? So our way of bringing in customers, it doesn't move away from what the regulation provides, but it's sometimes might not just be stricto sensu how the CBN wants you to do it. So yeah, so you might have your own internal processes on how you are onboarding customers, and CBN might just come and say no, that you're not doing the right thing, and then you should stop onboarding customers. I think this happened last year, and if anybody remembers, it happened with two fintech companies, very popular fintech companies. I won't mention names now. So they had to stop onboarding customers for like, I think about 3 or 4 months or thereabouts. And yeah, so this was a lesson for the rest of us, in the space, that okay, as much as you want to get customers down your pipeline, right, you also it should never come at the expense of compliance, right? It should never come at the expense of compliance. Compliance should always be embedded in your product design. It shouldn't be treated as an afterthought. So that was the lesson we learned from that. And that also, because it happened to other institutions, it helped us who were somewhat compliant to go back, look at our processes, and try to do better, so that we don't also be in the same shoes like other financial institutions. So that was it.
Wow. So basically, from your response, the importance of compliance just sort of increases by the day. You cannot say you're compliant enough. You just always have to be on top of your game to just ensure that you're not falling short in any way, or get any of these fines or penalties and all of that.
Exactly.
Okay, so basically it's a needed field, because if companies want to stay compliant, then they obviously need compliance specialists and compliance officers to enable them carry out their own side of the bargain. So my next question would be to Adelayo. Having seen that this is a much needed field, what are sort of practical steps that a young lawyer or even a student can put together? What steps can they start to take to start their compliance career? What would you say?
I would say that you need to develop the core skills. So these are things that we already have as lawyers, but then you need to just also just make sure that you keep on developing them. So your analytical skills need to be very good, attention to detail, because there's times where there might be something in like the regulations that you might not think too much of it, but because of your attention to detail, you would be able to interpret it in the way that the regulator intended for it to be interpreted, and also implement it in the products or in whatever area you are going to be working in. Then you need to be able to think critically, because as compliance, our role is more to support and to advise the business. We're not there to stifle the business, because at the end of the day, the main purpose or objective of the business is to make profit. So if you as compliance are coming and saying, no, the regulation does not let you do this, the regulation does not let you do this, then it's like, well, we need to make profit. So you need to find ways in which the business can like, you need to find ways in which, if the regulation says this, you need to kind of find a way in which the business can implement the requirements in such a way that it's not just, oh no, you can't do this. You need to be able to just help them brainstorm on, okay, this is a way we can implement this, this is how we can do this. So that's very important. And then you need to also be able to adapt to changing situations. So every day is not the same thing. Something can come up. So you need to be able to okay, pivot to like the next thing. Like if you're somebody that gets stuck on processes, on okay, I need to follow this plan. This is what I need to do for the day. Then you need to like change that mindset, because the regulator can just come and be like, okay, we need to do an audit and we need you to provide all of this information, all of these documents within maybe 7 days. And now you have to just change all of your plans. So you need to be able to adapt. Then for like knowledge gaining, you need to advise somebody that wants to go into the iGaming industry to maybe go to some of the regulator websites. I'd say that the easiest, not easy per se, but then the one that is really like easy to follow would be like the United Kingdom Gambling Commission website. So they have all of the regulations, their guidelines there. You can just go read it. They also have like all of the fines that they have that they've levied on operators. So you can just go read it, see their reasoning and all of that. So that will kind of help you understand and see where they are coming from with regards to like the regulation. You can also learn like, because for me, because I'm technical compliance and I've had to like just assist the teams with developing, for instance, new platforms or moving data to the cloud and all of that. So I've also had to learn like cloud architecture and cyber security. So like there's courses on Udemy or Coursera that you can take, and then there's also, you could also just check the demo products. Do not like check demo products and just see how they work vis-a-vis the regulation. So for instance, if the regulation says like maybe autoplay is not allowed, that the player needs to press a button before they can gamble, you can check it and see, does this like, just see how that works in a game. You can see, okay, is the balance there, or is the game history displaying? Just see how that regulation is brought to light in like the product. Then you can also take like certification courses. There's the ICA, International Compliance Association certifications. They've got AML courses. They've got governance, risk, and compliance diplomas. You can take those. Then there's also ISO 27001 lead auditor courses that you can take. These are also helpful because I also like do like a bunch of audits, like manage a bunch of audits. So that's also like helped me in my role, and just basically continue to grow and develop. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you. That's very, like, you've mentioned a whole lot of tools that any young lawyer, if they seriously want to get into the compliance space, especially in the gaming and tech space, then they can, start with all of that. MK, having listened to, all of what Adelayo has shared, would you provide insights into how young lawyers can get into the fintech space as, corporate compliance specialists?
Okay, so like she said, I honestly align with everything she said, right? Skills, in terms of skill, critical thinking, attention to detail, you have to pay attention to detail. Like, you have to be very detailed about everything, because you cannot make a mistake, right? Your mistake can cost the company a lot of money, so you have to be very careful. And then you also have to be able to communicate, right? And because sometimes you're gonna want your company to comply with a particular regulations, and you might have pushback from other members of your team who might not even really understand, what's at stake. So you have to be able to be stern in your communication that this is what needs to be done, because if it's not done, there's a risk, reputational risk, and everything. So you also have to be able to communicate and be very clear in your communication. And then also in terms of translating legal requirements to business processes. So Adelayo had said, you are not just there to say, okay, this is what the law provides. The law provides, and so what can we do about it? Do you understand? So you have to translate that into practical business processes. You have to align, because the company honestly is there to make money. So you have to ensure that the company is able to make money, and also work within guardrails. You're also there to be as guardrails to ensure that they're not doing anything that's not compliant. So that's it in terms of skills, and your legal skills will also help you along with to be honest, it does. And then in terms of she also said where you can get knowledge areas, there are lots of courses online. You find a lot of them on Udemy. In Nigeria, there's even a compliance certification you can take. So I think there are 3 levels. You can start as a designated compliance officer, associate, and a compliance fellow. This also puts you out there, and trainings, because you take trainings before you take these exams and you're being given the certification. So these trainings also do help you in your day-to-day job. Then other certifications, we have the certified anti-money laundering specialist certification, right? So that one is even more global, not limited to just Nigeria, because AML is a very big part of compliance. So yeah, that's another certification you can take. And then if you're interested in data compliance, obviously you have the CIPPE and the rest. So, and also keep yourself updated, read news. You subscribe to tech news, subscribe to compliance news websites, and not just locally but also internationally, because you also want to know what other companies in the same industries are doing globally. It helps your company to stay ahead. That's another thing. And then monitoring the regulators' websites. So I monitor the CBN website a lot to look out for new regulations, circulars, even some of the meetings that are being held, and they have their minutes posted on the website. You'd see MBR meetings, or maybe bankers committee meetings. There was a time when I started, the MD of the company would ask me to always check for the minutes of the bankers committee, the CBN bankers committee, and I would have to check that, I think, every month and send it to him. So that also helps you to know, okay, in what line is the regulator thinking? What are they doing? What's their focus this year? What are they doing? So that you are able to stay ahead of the curve. So that also really does help you in terms of skills and gaining knowledge and the rest. Yeah. Thanks.
Wow, thank you. That was very, very a lot of information. Anyone who wants to get into the space sort of really has a lot that they can go on with right now. As a follow-up question to that, would you say that in the compliance space, all of this knowledge that you have mentioned and even the experience, would you say that it's transferable internationally? Because while we're providing your answers, you did, touch a little bit on the global scope of it. Would you say that, for example, now you're working as, a compliance, a lawyer in that space? Would you say that it gives you the possibility of even doing the same thing internationally?
Very much, yeah, it does, like very much, because to be honest, for some like me, I have worked in for different jurisdictions. So again, like if you're working in a company that has other international, like other markets that are in other markets. So at my former place, which is Carbon, as at the time we had other companies in Ghana, in Kenya, and the rest. So I also had to do work for those entities while still working for the Nigerian entity. So the thing is that the laws might, they're mostly similar, and if there's a difference, it's just a bit of difference. So the principles of compliance, like they're mostly the same in this market. So your skill is very much transferable. Do you understand? Like if you can work in compliance in Nigeria, you can work in compliance in Ghana and Kenya and even Europe, America. Do you understand? Because it's almost the same thing. Maybe the laws might be different in like in Africa, the laws are almost the same, but in terms of like say the US, the UK and everything, the laws might be different a bit in terms of like risk management, governance, culture, like regulatory engagement and all that. But they're mostly the same principles of compliance which you can use in this market. So yeah, your skill in Nigeria, your problem solving skills, your attention to detail, your critical thinking skills, yeah, they're transferable and can help you to excel if you get a compliance role outside Nigeria.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. We actually have like 1 minute left. I would give this time to Adelayo. Maybe you have any last words that you want to share to the listeners in 1 minute. Okay, I think internet again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Okay. I'd say that you're already, as if you're a lawyer, you already have the skills. You just need to like develop it and learn more about the industry you want to enter. And I'm very sure that you will ace like any interview that you go into.
Okay, thank you so much, MK and Adelayo. We have gathered so much information in just a very short space of time. From what we have listened so far, you can see that compliance is not just about rules. It's about enabling business growth, which, that was a different perspective to it, and even protecting organizations and also even building trust. There's a lot of different segments to compliance. And I can also see that it's very, very possible for young lawyers and students to look into this area and get into it as soon as they can. They don't necessarily have to wait because they already have the skill set right now that can enable them get into the space. Whatever else they want to do is sort of to already add on top of what they have already done. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. I have learned a lot from all that you have shared. Thank you, MK. Thank you, Adelayo. I really appreciate your time in sharing your knowledge to young lawyers and even students. Thank you so much. To our listeners, this webinar was prepared and made possible to get to you by Njunkim Legal, and our next webinar would actually be on cybersecurity. So do not hesitate to follow us on all of our social media accounts so you can stay up to date with all of our blog posts, our information sharing, and even our future webinars. We always share this on all of our platforms. And thank you all for joining. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and your engagement, and we look forward to seeing you all in our future sessions. Thank you so much. All right, enjoy your evening. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.